a segmented way. As you're aware, today is the AIDS Day. At least it's the day that is commemorated world over in regard to the suffering, to the death, and of course awareness of the AIDS scourge that has come to live with us. And of course, I think we'll be talking about that briefly. The celebrations, I think, are being held in Masaka, or Rakai, of course, the main, the bigger Masaka, and that is where the national function is today. In the studio with me is Rachel Takali and Ndugu Rugarama, and of course all the missing person has also been found. Ndo Irumba, I think that one didn't take long to be found. We'll be looking at a number of issues, of course, like I said, but most importantly, issues that concern us as the people of Africa and those who are living in this continent of Africa, but of course, even those who are living outside of this continent. It's also our interest that people of Africa need, once this is an interest the African people need to know, we shall bring it to you. As usual, we begin with what has happened in this week of interest to the African continent and the African people. I will come in with what interests me in this particular week, and I'll come with it at last. But one of the things that caught my attention was which has been making rounds actually, a posting about politics, about actually democracy, and what does democracy mean. Last time when we were talking about democracy, and we said Africa needs to identify its own way of doing its things. Be it democracy, we need to define our own path, because the path we're following may not be the best for us now. There was a quote that is coming from Socrates, and it's talking about what democracy means. And it's very interesting when you read about it. I was reading and laughing about with it myself, looking at what is happening in Africa, and of course in Uganda. Then you are like, did this man see what is coming our way, years away? And that, I think he lived ahead, if that quote is anything to go by. So before I come to that, I will definitely invite my co-panelists to take us through what they have seen happen of African interest in this particular week. And do so, I think I'll begin with Ndugu Irumba, who has not been with us for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Thank you, Comrade Mututa. In your opening remarks, you said artists have not gotten lost for so long.
Like
so I'm wondering who got lost for so long.
Some people keep disappearing, then they ask us to tell the world where they are.
Now, to begin with, let me begin with the World AIDS Day. You see, the world, and especially the Western world, is showing that they are so remorseful that the world is losing the population through AIDS. And now they're even giving us statistics. They're saying between 15 years to 40, 70 people are affected in Uganda every day. Those are the statistics that they are doing. Sometimes when they are giving these statistics, on one hand they will tell you that at least the age group, the youth, is supposed to be between 15 and at least 30. But now when they are manufacturing these statistical data, they are draining the whole lot, which now brings me to think about why are they doing that, because you'd be able to tell how many the youth are getting infected and the reasons why and who is infecting them. But when you combine all of them and you say these numbers of people are getting infected without breaking down who is infecting who, because when you combine the youth and the elderly at 40, it clearly shows that it is the elderly that are infecting the youth. However,
or vice versa.
No, because where are the youth getting it? The young people. They must be getting it from the older people. They are simply, passing it on. Even if it was inborn, it must be an old mother or old father passing it to the unborn child. So it is direct. But now, that's number one. So we need to interrogate that. And the comrade, since he's a lawyer, he might be even knowing why that is happening. But number two, they are trying to show the world that this is an unfortunate thing that ever happened to humanity. That it is God made. No. The white man who is actually showing a lot of data and trying to pretend that he's looking for medicine, this AIDS is not God given. It is not God that created it. In 1984, this Robert Gallo from America created this disease. He created it, 1984, to kill people as a business. And now, since that, the number of people that have died, it is this man who has killed them. And this man is being protected by America. This very man. So the world should know, every family that has lost a loved one, world over, including Africa, every person that dies, it is this man, Robert Gallo, who is killing the people. And so they even have the medicine, but they don't give it to you, because when they give it to you, now the business will end. So even the Americans, they know that this is a business, and in a way it controls the people to their benefit. So that is something that we need to know. This is not something that God really said, let it be there. It is a man manufacturing it for selfish interest. He wants business, he wants money. And they have manufactured, they have got a lot of money from this AIDS disease. Number two, that caught my attention, is the fact that Somalia now is part of EAC, and the president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, is now the chair. But Salva Kiir, who does not remember who heads what in terms of the states, he can be reminded who is the president of Uganda, who is the president of Rwanda, who is the president of Tanzania. That is the chair now. So for me, that took my attention this week, Comrade Mututa, if you had asked me, and so I submit.
Yeah, those are some of the highlights, definitely, of course, and we were happy, East Africans, to see a new member finally admitted formally, because he has been here for all this time, but just for formalities of being accepted in the East Africa, in the community, and also seeing that Sudan takes over the lead. Of course, it doesn't have to be the president. It's a figurehead. A lot of things will be done by the technical people, but of course, of interest and concern was, during that conference, the health of the president. I think that was I could see, even those who were in the room were really solidified, seeing what was happening. But those are some of the things that we could see happening. But I think something will be done, and the Sudan will not forget that the other East African leaders who are working with them. And of course, like you said, the AIDS thing, it is a pity that Africa is on the receiving end. But I think by now we already have developed our own data that we can use to take decisions. We don't have to necessarily rely, especially in the issues of AIDS. I think the information that each country has in relation to what can be done, on which the decisions can be based, I think that information is good enough to enable us take decisions in fighting HIV/AIDS. Apparently, when I sit back, I don't know what is happening, but definitely my guess is as good as you people. Cuba wanted the African countries to start on the journey to immunize people against HIV/AIDS, so that in the next 15 or so years we will have eradicated. I think for them they are still on the clinical tests, but I seem not to have seen a lot of response from the African countries.
That can't be permitted.
Because, like you do know better than I do, that someone somewhere is looking at the billions of the dollars.
It is a multi-trillion dollar business.
So, but what are these guys thinking? Anyway, Rachel.
Well, even the HIV/AIDS issue, it will remain a polarizing discussion in some respects. When you consider that at this time, most of the people living with HIV/AIDS around the world are actually in sub-Saharan Africa. Most new infections are also occurring in this part of the world. I think it goes without saying that most deaths related to HIV/AIDS are still in this part of the world. The factors vary, but there are some pronounced commonalities concerning why this remains the case. Among them, we have spoken variously here that this business of handing our health and our education and our mineral management issues to foreigners is a very important dilemma. We know that one of the reasons why, for example, there were reversals on the front of the deaths attributed to HIV/AIDS in Uganda, for example. Uganda was the first African country to register reversals in concerning this epidemic many years ago. But much of that was very much the monies from elsewhere. It goes without saying that as those monies have been decreased because those nations have other priorities, the problem has once again begun to expand its tentacles. AIDS is not an issue that will receive a substantive answer in our generation, at least not where we live.
Yeah.
Because we still don't manage our health issues significantly. We still have so-called development partners with an outsized say in how we manage our populations, which health approaches, when and where. That in itself is a big deal, because when the money that they sunk into such efforts as TASO, the AIDS Support Organization, or there's another one, the AIDS, I forget the name. But some of these efforts have seen a sharp reduction in financing from elsewhere. But when that reversal came, they were not prepared to fill the gap. One of the reasons why AIDS is still an issue is the very thing you touched upon. We are very reluctant to develop our own responses. The systems that we're talking about, AIDS responses, originate elsewhere.
We are actually not reluctant, but the system that these global powers, they curtail our efforts.
Okay.
But no one is going.
All right.
No, I think that one,
okay.
for me, actually.
Mr. Mututa always talks about this.
Exactly.
40 years
Really?
into this thing. We can't still be blaming.
No, I don't believe that.
Okay, they have their issues. But 40
They will not
years.
allow you to put that system.
We have
There are
not,
certain
because-
things we can do.
Yes.
40 years, if they helped us substantially for 20 of those 40 years, where is your meaningful effort to fill the gaps that they've left?
Exactly.
Why would they take a leading effort in your own welfare? Why? If their pharmaceutical companies have a very deep and vested interest in keeping things as they are so they can sell their drugs till kingdom come, where are your own mitigating measures?
Exactly.
These men have an interest in selling vaccines and so on and so forth.
And they will
they're not
continue.
shy about
Exactly.
saying that. But until when will you say you will never have an ounce of your own? That is a significant dilemma. Research efforts are still largely in the other person's court. Intellectual contributions are still a preserve of the other guys. Financing of interventions is still primarily in the other guy's court. Then you say, we have a problem?
Unfortunately, they are using your money
True.
to finance you back,
Okay.
and they tell you what to do with that money.
That's why we're saying that even as people sit on tables to get political answers, they must also sit on tables to get health answers.
That should have been-
Indigenous.
that should have been
Homegrown.
exactly.
So we're saying that if the 40-year cycle has not registered positively in as far as we're concerned, the fact that most of the people who have AIDS are in this part of the world, most of the deaths are in this part of the world, most of the children with HIV AIDS are in this part of the world, most of the younger, it should show us that we must own this problem. We must stop saying it is to wait for WHO, to wait for whoever else. I have not seen the ownership of this problem. We're not saying we originated it, but I think at this time it doesn't even matter who originated it. It's killing us.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
It is just like these conflicts. When we say that people are dying in Congo because of armed conflict, people are dying in wherever, there has to come a place where you understand that even if it is someone who started this, you must own the answer, because the deaths are not in Washington and the deaths are not in London. Therefore, the answers have to come from here.
Actually, for me, like now you are putting it and the rest of that, can we also have a standby force
Well,
for AIDS?
those are answers that people have
That
to.
as a region,
But even leaving that aside, one of the things that caught my attention this year, actually this week, was the death of Henry Kissinger, who was a very prominent American diplomat of yesteryear and a national security advisor. He had an outside footprint on global issues in his day. He was at the helm of, he was at the top of Cold War politics. He was unashamedly American, even if he was an immigrant from Germany. He was born in Germany. His family escaped the excesses of Hitler. His family went to America back in '38. But this was a man whose legacy is littered with corpses because his Cold War excesses were experienced in Vietnam, were experienced in Chile under Agustino Pinochet. And he had no apologies concerning supporting despots, murderers of their own people, wicked leadership in the name of propagating American values at whatever cost. No, this man was not apologetic. So even as they talk about his high intellect, great education, diplomatic credential, they should not forget the corpses that go with this legacy.
so what happens when we finally say, let him rest in peace?
Well, God is a forgiving one.
as well
I hope he rests in peace. Because he lived to be 100, by the way. And there are many people who are not so kind concerning how his path has affected them. So
I know.
when you're talking about Cold War politics, you're talking Kissinger, really.
Exactly.
He superintended, he was the bath attendant of these politics. And actually, it's very interesting because he has died at a time when the Israeli issue is back in focus. You know, he was a Jew. And I think one of the reasons why he was almost extreme in his defense of what they call the free world, and I don't know what is free about murdering others to secure your own wealth, to secure your own space. I don't know what is free about that. But
that's what they call democracy. And
yes,
that's what Socrates was
we are
warning
saying
against.
the death of Kissinger shows that the Western nations have perfected their systems. Even when Kissinger left, that way of doing things is still alive and well.
Today.
Whatever it takes to secure Western resources, Western dominance, whether that is in Palestine, whether that is in Chile, whether it is Kissinger today, whether it is Obama tomorrow, the system keeps delivering the same results.
And I like it that way. Because, and that's why I said, the point which you came to, which Ndugu Irumba also raised, this issue of saying they will not allow us to do this, they will not allow us to do this. Of course, they're not going to allow us to do anything, but we also don't have to wait until they will do so, because they're not going to do it. So if it means climbing trees, we have to do it. If it means breaking walls, we have to do it. If it means burning bridges or building bridges, definitely we have to do it. Because why I'm saying so is that, can we, as African leadership, and the African community and the African society, East African community, look at now AIDS as an attack on us, and we put together resources to fight it on a single front? Of course, you get a lot of reasons why not two. But at the end of it, we are suffering because we are not able to take a decision. We are saying people who have put up a system that has served them hundreds of years into millions. But for us, as Africans, we have become so disengaged and disgruntled and whatever, that we are not able to sit down and look at a common problem and have a common front on how to confront it. Because it is true that someone is going to tell you, say, don't take that path because we are going to fund you A, B, C, D, so you don't need that. And that's what will happen. You start well, then along the way, Kenya will leave you, or Tanzania will leave you, or Rwanda will leave you, or someone will leave you, and that's what is happening. So I think that's what brings in the point of Ndugu Irumba said, these people are not going to allow us to do this. But for how long are we going to wait to have that freedom to be able to do that? Ndugu Rugarama.
They want too much lost.
Yeah, we almost, but we didn't report to police, so we couldn't blame government for not telling us where he was.
I was fine and accounted for. Probably I was with those ones who got
lost. Maybe those who got lost eventually.
Good morning once again to our dear esteemed viewers, and good morning to you, comrades here in the studio. My observations this week, we have already raised the issue of Kissinger. Kissinger, of course, up to now is well written about as a top diplomat in the American politics. He opened up the links between Asia, mainly China and America. Is the man that almost single-handedly supervised the blueprint upon which America relates with Africa.
Sure.
And that is very, very, very critical for us, in the sense that whatever we have seen from that time up to today to go wrong, as indeed it does go wrong every other day, is the handwork and the brainwork of Kissinger. His input in as far as the atrocities committed, especially in Latin America, which my sister Rachel talked about, are well known, that not just in Kiri, but when you also look at Vietnam, that is your Kissinger. And probably on Kissinger, if he was not disturbed enjoying his retirement by these overzealous Jews in America, bringing him to comment, because you remember about a month, some weeks ago, the media houses found a reason to bring him over, along, of course, with Naomi Chomsky, one of the Jews, again, is Jew-American. Of course, the audience should also get to know that the Jews, the Israelis, majority of them have got dual citizenship. And when you see America tell you that they are the ones who are at the center of negotiating the release, of course they will tell you Qatar and Egypt, and then the exchange program that now so many are going to be released. Majority of the Israelis who are actually being exchanged are actually Americans. After all, at the end of the day, who are the Americans anyway? You know. So Kissinger was a so many-faced man. He was wearing so many faces and so many also personalities, if you like. But I think what defines him is championing the greatest unfortunate foreign policy, American foreign policy, which is about nothing but dominance. That is about Kissinger for me. Okay. Then, of course, we continue to observe the hypocrisy of the Western world, especially America, in the Gaza debacle, where all the media houses now are talking about the exchange of prisoners, but the occupying forces and the state of Israel will tell you our mission is threefold. We want to have our people released, and they must be released for us to have a temporary ceasefire. 2, we want to make sure that Hamas does not repeat what it did on, was it 10th of what? Of the 7th.
Yes.
Then 3, we want to ensure that we completely dismantle the Hamas. Now, Hamas, I have always maintained, and I will repeat it, is but a fighting force, fighting arm of the revolution that the Palestinians are waging against the occupying forces. That is my stand. If it was the debate today,
it's a Mau Mau rebellion, Mau Mau of those days.
Yes, I would substantiate it. Now, 3, my observation is also I have seen the report being read out from government, and I think this is what we were saying, that there was no reason as to why the government, our government really, should not make an accountability of the missing people. Because by saying that I cannot conclusively give you evidence as to where this person is, but in finding out as to where he or she could possibly be, this is what I have done, is also accountability. Why don't you do it? Now that they have done something, at least I am happy that we have got where we can start from. And this, it was not necessary for us really as government to take this long. The people responsible should have done this long time ago. But like Francis Buga says, never late. Never what?
Better late than never.
Better than late.
Better late than never.
But he said it the other way around.
Nevertheless.
Yes. Now, I want to end my observation with what our colleagues, my colleagues have also looked at. You talked about the Cuban vaccination. I want to tell you, Ndugu Mututa and my sister here and my brother and viewers out there that for me, who has been fortunate to interact greatly with the Cuban community, both here and elsewhere, I can tell you that Cuba has got so many other remedies, including cancer remedies and other forms of ailments. Its health record, of course, the doctor-patient ratio is, I think, the highest, globally speaking. We have got, and if it was not for the manipulation of statistics which we are talking about here, I think Cuba's life expectancy is even higher than that one of Japan. We know the health systems within Cuba, but not only will, for instance, that HIV/AIDS vaccine be stopped by, of course, the World Health Organization, which is nothing but largely American thing, but also our other dealings, because remember we have got an embargo. Cuba has an embargo, and that embargo stretches to health issues. I can also authoritatively tell you that some of the cancer-related ailments we have, globally speaking, Cuba has got capacity, including, by the way, COVID. You remember what Cuba did with
they already had a remedy.
And that remedy has got the highest degree of efficacy, but we still cannot access because of that embargo. Now, I want also to tell you that as far as HIV/AIDS is concerned, the fact that this is a multi-trillion-dollar business, the pharmaceutical industry, which is highly controlled by the imperialistic West, including America, is going to sabotage and has always sabotaged the advancement of medicine on the African continent. And even if, by the way, we came up with remedies, because it has been argued, and here, when we are having this program, we talk from the highest level because we are Pan-Africanists. We are not going to start quoting figures here, appear to be very sophisticated, but we must hit the nail on the top. And the fact that it has been reported, and on good authority, that here on the African continent, we have, in one way or another, some countries developed remedies for HIV/AIDS. And the long, sometimes invisible hand, especially to those who don't want to see, of the imperialistic West has always interfered. You see, we can debate, and I agree with you, Mututa, when you say, but for how long? But I also hear Ndugu Irumba when he says, my brother, for you, we can comfortably sit here in the studio of UBC and say for how long. The truth of the matter is that the how long we may not for certain tell you for how long as like our slogan in the Pan-African movement, we don't agonize, we keep organizing. When do we stop organizing? We cannot say, because it has taken 40 years, then we now all over cry and agonize. We shall keep organizing. The truth of the matter is that on the African continent and elsewhere, we have developed at a certain level remedies to combat AIDS and HIV. But the policies within the World Health Organization, which is a thing of America and other the imperialistic West, will make it very complicated for a country or an individual to roll out that medication. Madagascar, recently, during COVID, actually is said to have developed a highly a remedy against COVID, and when they tried to roll it out, including rolling out to Tanzania, they ended up killing the president of Tanzania, that he died of heart attack, to show you that this cannot work. So the truth of the matter, in as far as AIDS, HIV/AIDS is concerned, is that this being a martyr.
So you're saying they killed him?
He was killed.
Yeah, but
okay,
now,
where is the report? Let them publish a report of what he died of. No problem. Okay, for me, if I'm making false allegations, let them have a report of what actually killed him, independent report.
But Ndugu Rugarama,
Yes.
why, for me, I don't believe that that the things that we should be sitting on this continent and lamenting all the time, say, what do we do?
This is what I have just said. We are not agonizing in the Pan-African movement. We are saying, you see, look here, Comrade Mututa and our dear viewers, Pan-African movement, we don't agonize. We keep organizing. And part of the organization scheme is to talk about a problem. If, for instance, Christianity, which very soon we shall be talking about, and other religious denominations, they stopped talking about their agenda, I can assure you, give it about a year or even less than a year, the Christianity as a movement will die out. They actually to know that talking about a problem is not agonizing but organizing. If the Muslims have stretched it, they do not pray, they do not communicate to God, and they also do it very frequently, 5 times a day. They don't only stop there. They also make sure that they make noise. Even if you are not a Muslim, they will put the mount around the speaker to announce that this is now prayer time. We cannot get shy and ashamed of talking about the Pan-African agenda, of calling out those people who are foiling our agenda as Pan-Africans. We shall shout about it on UBC and other related media houses.
Yeah, because my only problem, actually not the other problem, is that they're talking, and I've seen this happen. Some of these guys are not as smart as, by the way, we call them to be. We have seen this when it happened into Niger. Well, when you are speaking French, they say you can say Niger, and when you are speaking English, you can say Niger. So what happened in Niger was that after they take over and the rearrangement, this madman, we thought, is now saying, no, if you are taking our minerals at $20 and you are selling them at $200, we also want $200. Now, if you are not going to pay $200, get off.
We shall sell to one who is willing to
but
give
he
us
hasn't stopped there.
the $200. Maybe
Exactly.
let me give you this information before I forget it. Cuba, when Uganda and the majority of African countries were still not aware of what Robert did, the creation of HIV/AIDS, when they were not aware, because of our relations with Cuba, a team of UPDF, by then NRA, were sent for training, and out of
training in Cuba.
Military training in Cuba. Out of about 90 something, well over 70 were returned because of it's on record.
AIDS.
Because of AIDS. What the president of Cuba did at that time, El Comandante Fidel Castro, he called His Excellency here and said, my young brother, you have a problem. You have a problem. Thank you very much. Yeah. You have a problem. He said, why? What is the problem? There is this disease. Now, you can imagine, Cuba then was so much aware.
Already had the capacity
so much to detect,
to test,
and had ability to treat at that time. But you see, treatment goes in stages. You cannot subject somebody to treatment and say, go for training. That was the challenge. So they had to come back. Do you want to tell me that that country, therefore, who then had that capacity, do not have a choice?
No, for them they have moved on.
But they can't roll it out now.
And of course you can't roll it out when people are, first of all, they will say you are taking the billions from their pharmaceuticals, which they would be safer, even when they say World Bank should not give you money, but for the AIDS they will say, let's find a way of helping the sick people. Where are you taking this money at the end of it? It is ending up somewhere.
So we are equally saying that our economies here on the African continent, by the way, because the question was, for how long are we going to keep lamenting? We are not lamenting, we are organizing by talking about the problem. But look, the economy of Venezuela, for instance, has been crumbled by America single-handedly because of its independent-minded thinking and way of wanting to do things, to run away from the monopoly of the American conglomerates exploiting the resources, which is oil, of Venezuela, and they have enhanced the
Rachel also
sanctions.
had a point to come on Niger.
Yes, I was saying, you're saying some people thought these coup leaders are mad. No,
Yes.
they're not mad. I've said many times here that thank God that ECOWAS came to itself,
Senses.
because they were definitely going to be the handiwork of our imperialistic fellow inhabitants of the earth.
Sure.
These were people who had prepared themselves to stifle the will of their neighbors. The people of Mali and the people of Niger and the people of Guinea decided that France had been exploiting them enough, and therefore they needed a new beginning. And there was ECOWAS making all these unpalatable noises. We're coming to get you. But thank God, sanity prevailed. But that aside, lately, one of the moves that ECOWAS took, and actually the president of Nigeria single-handedly, cut off the power supply to Niger. They said, look, you've parted from the democratic path. We are no longer going to sit across from you. Therefore, our power.
Africa has issues.
So what Niger has done, we are talking about people who they tell us we have to choose or to agree on who should lead you. They said, look, we had and we do have a lot of sunshine.
Exactly.
We can do something substantive using solar power. And so they have really ratcheted up their effort to boost the output of solar energy.
We are not getting
They left
this.
Nigeria alone.
They are not getting it for free.
No, the colonizer, I'm sure he placed a call to the president of Nigeria and said, my friend, you need to act.
Act now.
Don't we have an understanding? They turned off the power. But you turned off the power. What has Niger done to you?
You know, Africa has never been short of surprises.
Well,
Kaunda suits.
those ones also. What has the Kaunda suit done to keep you from legislating? Yeah? Is it a tie that legislates? Is it a tie that represents the people?
I'm even shocked, by the way, Rachel, that it is in Kenya, which has got a president who cuts a figure of a Pan-African. I've already pressed a call to my counterpart in
See,
Kenya,
what has
the
happened?
chairperson, to ask him to have a move against the speaker
To rescind
for
this-
having done
this,
such a thing.
Exactly.
this impossible path.
And trust those boys. They will do something. Just
I
to
mean-
give you the week.
What possessed the speaker to pronounce himself in such a questionable fashion?
By the way, I was just so shocked at the. I've not even found out the reason. Why did he do it?
Because you're wondering, are the people indecent who wear these suits? You're talking about the skirt should not be so high and so on. Okay, what is wrong with this particular suit that was popularized by late Kaunda?
Yes,
That's why
exactly,
it's
a
called
Pan-African.
Yes, a
It's a
Pan-African.
Pan-African
But
way.
we are wondering, what is it about this suit that defeats the ends of legislation? What is it about this suit that
It's so
frustrates
indecent. Exactly, the
the
speaker.
representational efforts of the people of Kenya?
That
That
tells
sort of-
you
of-
that tells you what we are greatly suffering from.
The
You
elite
see?
of Africa
Yes.
are a problem. Yes, they are a problem. Now this,
So then tomorrow you are going to blame the colonizers for
for
sticking
introducing
around.
the necktie.
Exactly.
Did he keep you from tailoring your own
You're
clothes?
not, you're on a cloth. And this is my
How-
point, gentlemen and lady, that sometimes we blame these people who having been here, having told us, my friend, even you will have to call somewhere else to say, I'm sleeping in my bed. Which side should I face?
Was the Kitenge also banned in that parliament?
No.
The Kitenge can go.
By the way, let me tell you, this is information. We may not realize the power of lobbying. Now, quote unquote, lobbying. I want to tell you that when we are trying to promote our local garment industry, the outside world, which dumps the old clothes, like they do the old cars, to us, have got a lobbying force that will tell our governments
heavily
here
paid, yeah.
that yes, they will tell our governments here that certain things must not be done. That's a no-go area. Please, if, for instance, you are not going to consume our used clothes, they will implement systematically, and sometimes, of course, after promoting their own home people, they will educate people who are going to fit in these offices, who will look like you, but they will be moving on the agenda which is not yours.
But
and this is what they have successfully
But I think
done.
that is true of the same, because you know, President Ruto is a fan of countersuits.
Yes.
And by the mere fact that you have a national figure who is putting on a
Actually
countersuit,
going to buy two.
that is many to tell you that many of other Kenyans are likely to be putting on countersuits. And if you are going to have most of your legislators putting on countersuits, then it means the population is going to put on countersuits, and someone is going to lose market in marketing. Italians are not going to sell their suits. So
He says he's going to buy one in protest.
in protest, then we should all buy countersuits and come here dressing countersuits for a but I think, like you said,
agree.
that one is going. You agree that you have to put on
Countersuits.
in
Next
protest.
time.
Okay.
Next Friday, we'll come in countersuit.
In protest,
Yes.
I agree with that.
Rachel will get countersuit.
It's a countersuit also
And
for
she
a
looks
lady.
smart. Just
Yeah.
look
There's
at
a
her.
countersuit for Rachel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, the viewer who is out there following us on these discussions. They seem to be fun, but actually it's not fun at all, because this is what Africa is going through. And unless we put ourselves together and we put our heads together, put our efforts together, we're definitely destined for destruction. And if we are not going to work together, like the president here said, we are all going to die together. So there is a high time now we woke up and we work together on all these fronts. We have AIDS ahead of us, we have poverty ahead of us, we have all this bad politics ahead of us, we have all these that are facing us. But what do we do as Africans? Sitting, crying, and making noise alone will not help us, but we also need people who can act, like we have seen things change in Nigeria. Today, we are looking at some topic. And this topic today is going to do with religion. And after the break is where we are going to be starting with that topic, looking at religion and our development. I know religion is such a wide thing. We may not exhaust it in the program today, this single episode, but I know at least with the follow-up and with the ideas from out there, we shall be able to come to a conclusion on what this religion means to us as the people of Africa. Don't go away. After a short break, we shall be back with that discussion. Thank you.
An amazing off-the-hook youth program brings you an array of fun, exciting, and educative segments you do not want to miss. From red carpet moments to proms, youth empowerment programs to youth gig vibes, and so much more, Teens Crown will get you hooked. Only on UBC TV every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Don't miss.
The stage is a world of entertainment. Get the latest entertainment, lifestyle, events and activities. Chats with celebrities that make headlines.
It's your girl Zari, Mama Tifa. I'm in town, I'm in Uganda.
It's showbiz. Join me, Mary. I intend to connect you to a lot of fun. Cause I know you want it, you love it, you enjoy it. All on Power Flavor Magazine, reloaded for you right here on UBC. Don't miss out every Saturday, 12 p.m.
The Property Line. Everything real estate, construction, class, and luxury.
Real estate, it's land and developments on land.
We are now, as a country, in an auto-drive mode with respect to real estate.
We have a deficit in housing of more than 2 million units.
For the real estate, when you have income, I want you to contribute something.
Don't miss The Property Line every Saturday 7:30 p.m. and Monday 11 a.m. only on UBC TV. Inspiring Uganda.
This is Chilling. Don't miss a brand new season of Chilling on UBC TV.
Program My School, a great students program and your answer to education perspective, giving you reason as to why you should pay school fees for your child's education, with items like students' talents, thoughts, adventures, and skills showcased, leadership skills, and all other activities plus concerns in various schools in your locations. Remember that our children are our future generation. Don't miss Program My School.
Welcome back from that break. I know many of our people are following us across the continent. I know Mama Tengo is following us from Addis, and Mama Olive is following us from Beijing. I have information, people following us from South Africa, from Rwanda, Kinshasa, USA, Brazil, and all other countries that are not able to get information here. But we thank you for your time that you spend with us to discuss issues of interest to the Africans who stay back home here, and those who are living outside of Africa. Now, before we went off the break, we were talking, of course, Kaunda Suit Salon. We said everyone will come next week in Kaunda Suit as a protest. But other than that, today we are looking at issues of course, it's even related to the issues of religion now. That religion has come to Africa. By the time it came to Africa, Africans, of course, had a way of relating with their gods and their God. But it didn't matter that they were living that way. And here we see Christianity coming in, Islam coming in, and of course many other faiths that have found their way into this continent. And we have seen that our development is hinged to this new way of doing things. We talk, we trace, we live, we die, but in connection with now what would have come to be the new way of life. Religion is also hinged to what was called civilization. Now civilization, people who used to tell us people who are civilized are people who live a decent life, but we have also seen, like Ndugu Rugama was talking here, and of course Rachel about Kissinger, that sometimes civilization doesn't mean decency. Sometimes doesn't mean the right things to do. So one then can argue that even this religion came to Africa, Africans were civilized in their own way.
By far.
Yeah, and to do that, we shall roll out a discussion with a letter that was written by King Leopold in 1833 to the missionaries who were coming to do missionary work in Congo. And this letter talks volumes about religion and the African way of life. So I think let's first have that letter that was written, that video, then we can begin from there.
Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God. This they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one in Nzambi, one in Nzakomba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie and to insult is bad. Have courage to admit it. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests in that part of the world. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground. To avoid that, they get interested in it and make you murderous competition and dream one day to overthrow you. Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like, happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in the schools. Teach students to read and not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonialists, so they never revolt against the restraints they are undergoing. Recite every day. Happy are those who are weeping because the kingdom of God is for them. Convert always the blacks by using the whip. Keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in sign of recognition goats, chicken, or eggs every time you visit their villages. And make sure that niggers never become rich. Sing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax each week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to build flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system, which allows you to be good detectives denouncing any black that has a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach the niggers to forget their heroes and to adore only ours. Never present a chair to a black that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than one cigarette. Never invite him for dinner even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. The speech, which shows the real intention of the Christian missionary journey in Africa, was exposed to the world by Mr. Mukwani Bukoko, born in the Congo in 1915, and who in 1935, while working in the Congo, bought a second-hand Bible from a Belgian priest who forgot the speech in the Bible. Dr.
Yep. So that is what we are reading now. Thank God that letter was late. In fact, I had to take trouble to find out if this letter was authentic. And I had to also let counsel go through it to find out if this letter was authentic. And we proved that actually the letter was written. Now, this is the two things. And in fact, last time when we were talking about this issue of religion here, we said we need to understand two things here. There is religion, but there is also Christianity. There is religion, but there is also Islam. For the greater day-to-day time, we shall commit ourselves to Christianity. There will be another time to look at Islam. Of course, even the Arabs also occupied Africa, and I think they ruled us, they took us for 400 years, a shorter period than what the colonialists did. But we shall have a different day for the Arab thing. Now, lady and gentlemen, we are looking at this in the context of differentiating between Christianity and religion. Now, we are looking at the religion based on specific facts, like now we are reading from the letter of King Leopold, who is saying that this, because before we came to this, we said even before what civilization came to Africa, Africans definitely knew their God. And I think we are proving this from the letter of King Leopold, saying the niggers, as he was calling them, already know God. There's nothing you are going to teach them about God. They actually, the niggers knew God more than even those who are coming to teach them. But the issue of them coming here was not to teach us how to know God, unfortunately, but teach us how to keep us under the yoke. And that's the unfortunate part. But of course, when you take religion away from Christianity, you realize that I think Christianity took a different path. When you are talking about Christianity, we look at where Christianity originated. It did not necessarily originate in Europe. It just found its way in Europe. But the Europeans were, like Rachel put when we started this program, that they can plan their things years ahead, and they are consistent on that. For them, they looked at that was the better way, the softer way of taking on the niggers, of course, and of other areas. And that's why it would have been easier to colonize Africans when you teach them the God they already know, and you add to them that you are happy and blessed if you are going to live poor, and you're also going to be happy and blessed if you are going to obey the authorities. These are texts actually apparently which are in the scriptures and in the Bible, and of course the Bible didn't of course originate from Europe, but they are using this information which is already in the Bible to teach the niggers on how to live. And the guy puts it very well. Say, don't allow them, when they go to school, teach them how to read. Don't teach them how to reason.
Still the case now.
Yes, least they will discover the wealth they have, and we shall not be able to beat them. We shall compete with them. And that exists up to today. My question is, as I put it, when will this end? Because we are looking at this continue from today. That letter is very cardinal. And I think that's what we are going to look at, the issue of Christianity with the development of Africa. Is it a way of putting us into the civilized society, or it is the way to keep us where we are, even telling us that now this is how you should dress as you come to Parliament? Nduguru Garama.
Thank you so much, comrade. Christianity, like you have correctly observed, is just one other way of expressing a given section of people's faith and interacting with their God. Like you can have Islam, which is another form of expressing the relationship between that given community with their God. So in Christianity, of course, we can have Roman Catholic, like we do have, and I think, of course, in reference to this particular letter that has just been audio read to us, Leopold II is of the Catholic incarnation. That is Belgium as a country, and Leopold, of course, as a king. The Christianity that we are talking about, greatly, be it the Anglican, which some people call Protestant, and they did Protestant because it broke away from the Roman Catholic because they were protesting against some of the acts that were being practiced in the Roman Catholic faith. The movement of administration, and I think it is even contained in this particular letter that King Leopold II was writing to his henchmen, whom he called evangelists and priests.
He was calling them compatriots.
Compatriots, indeed, because they were clearing the way for the administrators to have the interests of the colonizers achieved. Because it is not just this letter, but this letter also finds a lot of relevance and is in line with what a renowned author and novel writer, Mongo Betty, did, especially in his most celebrated book, Poor Christ of Bomba, whose setting is in Cameroon, where Father Drummond, in an effort to buttress the efforts of the administrators then, on his evangelistic missionary work, finds a one, was it Mbata or something like that, being killed by a tree which fell on him as he was collecting firewood from the forest. And in his overzealousness, Father Drummond says, "Let me pray for you." First of all, they said, "But Father, let us first remove the branch of the tree from the man's neck, then you can offer your prayers." And he said, no. We have to pray for him. Then he must confess his sins, and he must also relinquish, must make it very clear, categorically clear, that he is going to do away with all the wives and remain with one. Because that is what Christianity demands. Ultimately, the man, after his confession, of course, grudgingly, he dies. Now, that was Mongobeti. The power of those writers at that time, the Mongobetis of that time, the Nguju Wasiyongos of that time, the Woro Soyinkas of that time, I tell you, either we are losing the literature, way of writing, or in one way or another, we need to up the game. Like we said anyway. That is a debate for another day. The point I'm making here is that it is not just this letter, but also this letter finds a lot of relevance in some of the writings that have been done by those who think beyond what has been just available to them to read. The majority, if not all, of the agents of Christianity at that time, the missionaries who came along, be it in the Roman Catholic, be it in the Anglican, majority of them who came with, because if you realize you go back to history, around immediately after 1884-85 Berlin Conference, and the partitioning and scramble of African continent, you will find that those which were taken over by the Roman Catholic countries that were practicing Roman Catholic faith, that is where that they went and practiced that. You go to Cameroon, the northern part of the Poro Bears and what have you, that is Roman Catholic. You'll find that that is what is applying there. You go to the southern part, and that is why you find these wars, by the up to now. The war we have between the south and the north of the Cameroon is simply because the lower part speaks English and the upper part speaks French. But it is one country, and probably they even share the same language, some tribes around there. You will go to some countries like Nigeria, and we will find that largely the Igbos, because they were the ones, it was just a tribe that was pointed out by the imperialists, the colonialists, and given what they call education, this one which makes us proud. They look at the Fulanis and other tribes who didn't get much exposed to the white man's education as less deserving. You know these battles within Nigeria. So, when it comes to this particular letter that has been read to us, you can clearly see that the intention of the colonial master, especially speaking for Congo, Congo was a country, now present day, DRC, was a country that was originally taken over as a personal entity of King Leopold II. After King Leopold II had had enough of the exploitation, because this that he writes, at that material time, all the revenue that was being collected, the rubber being collected from DRC, was going to the personal coffers of King Leopold II. When he had had enough of DRC for the political changes that were happening within Belgium, it was the country, DRC or Congo then, was handed over to Belgium. From the Belgium government, colonial government, you can see that then they started having the fights of independence, and that is when we are having the likes of the then stooge being given as the president, then Patrice Lumumba coming in, but also Mobutu Sese Seko taking over, and the rest, they say, is history. But the point that we must get as Pan-Africans and debaters at this material time, and to the benefit of our audience, is that this letter is not speaking anything new. It is what we constantly observe, but because of the power of the colonial education and the power behind the denominations that were introduced to us by the white man in Anglicanism, in Roman Catholicism, we don't openly speak about these things. I can assure you that after this debate from here, I will receive a number of calls as to why I was commenting, rather in some of the people's opinion, negatively about, say, Roman Catholic or Anglicanism.
Now, in the same letter, I think it is interesting when you sit down and you read the whole letter, you can begin seeing things, but like I said, it is also good to look at that letter in the segregation of religion, Christianity, but also reality. That we need to look at all these areas with the sober mind, because then someone will say, you people are not even Christians, so you people are now talking bad about God. If there's any person who is talking about God, the niggers know God, like the man said, niggers here know the God. The problem is that someone was using this information, and because when he talks of teach them how to write and read, and don't teach them how to reason.
Has it changed?
It has not changed.
The seminaries which we have, what do they teach? Do we teach articulation, criticizing of what is taught to us, or we take wholesale what is given? Do we question?
And even before Rachel comes in, this letter is also responsible, and also the working, the thinking for the murders that we have had on this continent. talk about the Mombasa massacres of 1660 something. Talk of
even in Zambia.
Yes, the killings in Zambia.
The
Talk of
Chugwete.
the Madagascar massacres of the Christians there. Talk of the Uganda. The Uganda matters. You know, the letter is saying you teach their younger children to believe in the Father, the God, our religion, than their parents. So if you are going to tell, and this is what happened when in Uganda, for example, the people we celebrate as Uganda Matters, indeed they were told to rebel. And this letter brings out that aspect very well. So you realize that much as we are looking at our people across Africa, not only in Uganda, in Madagascar, in Zambia, in Malawi, in Congo. In Congo we had a very strong man who was called, because this guy, when he was born, there was a prophecy, that this old woman who says there will one time come a person who will be a savior of Africa and will be a great danger to the missionaries. I tell you, that woman, I think it was in 1887 when she was roasted. She was burned like potatoes because of that. And now in her killing, and of course for people who read history will find out that it was the Catholic Church actually that ordered for her killing. She was burnt alive. But a year later, a man was born, and that man made wonders. You are also looking at other people who, out of that, we are looking at people like John Chirembwe from Malawi, who was also a Christian minister, we can say so. But because he was critical of the way they were taking people in Zambia for those who are working in Zimbabwe, who are working on the white farms, the way they were being treated, the way Christians were conducting themselves, the way the colonialists were conducting themselves against the Africans. The guy was killed. So when you look at some of this, it gives you an idea that actually religion then, Christianity aside, was not meant to promote the civilization that we are talking about in Africa, but rather to keep Africans in the space that the colonialists wanted them to be. Rachel.
I think I'm going to come at this from a different angle, but I think we'll end up in the same page. First of all, the man who authored this letter was not a member of the clergy. This man was a politician, an ambitious one, whose aims were very clear. He had tried to use the Belgian state to get more territory beyond their borders, but the Belgians were not open. So he zeroed in on a personal territory overseas, and that is where he's coming at it. So for him, his calculations were cold business. There was nothing spiritual or religious about Leopold's, although he pretended to be coming from that point of view. But I think even more than that, the issue here is not Christianity per se.
Yes.
The issue is the use of Christianity.
Religion, actually.
Of religion to achieve certain people's aims. For example, Leopold was a European, and that is not even the origin of Christianity. Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion. We all know this. So these Europeans used it as a vehicle to achieve their own ends.
Yes.
And in fact, the very things that they perpetuated are expressly forbidden in Christianity. This man reached levels of brutality that are yet to be matched.
When you see the Congolese with their hands chopped off because they failed to raise,
you are talking
so much
about
so that
hands information. And you permit this because it is a historical fact. The men in the DRC or Congo then, who could not raise the number of rubber that was expected of them, their penises would be cut off and paraded before the supervisor such that they would account that these ones, this is the kind of punishment. Whoever would see a colleague's private part cut off would know they are not correct the required number, volume of rubber.
Let alone outright death. But what we're trying to say is that the Christianity or religion in this case is not the issue. The people who used it for their ends, because had this been really an aim, had the aim been missionary work, Christianity expressly forbids murder, torture, rape, abductions, and those kinds of things, which this man did to make sure that he got a personal fortune, and he did. It was so terrible that this man, Leopold, called the DRC his personal, it was a personal colony.
It was.
It was not the colony of Belgium. It was a personal thing. So much so that in the 1900s, early 1900s, when the excesses reached high heaven, Belgium was forced to put his leadership aside and to assume the leadership over Congo, the Belgian government. But I think, Ndugu Mututa, I'd like to read you something that is very current, something that happened this very week, that has its parallels in the behavior of Leopold. This very week, the BBC reported that one of the most critical bishops in the Vatican, his name is Burke, he's an American bishop. They say this has not been done before, where the Vatican intends fully to evict this man from his Vatican apartment. He has reached an age, he's an older man now, I think he's 65. He has reached an age where he should be able to retire and stay within the Vatican somewhere, not necessarily in his position, but they're even looking at revoking his salary. What are the sins of this man? You may say that Leopold committed excesses against the people of the Congo to further himself. But the sins of Burke are resisting the current trend towards loosening the teachings of the Catholic Church. Burke and others like him, especially in America, in early November, there is a Catholic bishop of Texas who was called Strickland. He was relieved of his duties for being on record resisting the current flow that says loosen the controls or the teaching on abortion, on transgender, on homosexuality, on abortion, on divorce. And they're saying, no, that is the position of the Catholic Church. We can't have it. So the Vatican is cracking down. We are talking about, so they're saying, look, they say that they cannot reward people who are resisting the present direction of the leadership. We are saying that religion, when mixed with political approaches, becomes a disastrous institution. This man, Leopold, carried out these excesses in the name of religion. But now there are people again, in the highest reaches of the church, who are saying, please, the modern era says these things of saying a man is a man, paka last. No, you can wake up and say, I am a woman, yet everybody sees you a man. They say they have not stopped there. These things are happening now, as I say, not in Leopold's time. The Catholic Church has lately said, the hierarchy, they have said, please, you can baptize transgender people. Children who are born, say, and the hospital said they are male. On their 5th birthday, they are saying they are women. As long as they do not cause scandal.
No, that's already scandal.
Or trouble, baptize them. They said recently, they're even open to blessing same-sex marriages. It is the Protestant Church that began this madness. Now the madness is making its way into the Vatican. But what we are saying is, what Leopold claimed was the interpretation of the white man of his religion back in the 1800s. The white man is again changing the basis. He's saying, yes, we told you that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. But today, because the intellectuals have said otherwise, please, That is the religion we are teaching today. In other words, the spirituality as delivered to Africa is tainted with humanism. It is not the original Christianity. It is not the original Islam. It is tainted with the politics. Now, it is for the African to extract the best and the true and the right and go with those ones. Leave the white man's interpretation alone.
Or abandon it altogether.
Leave the Arab's interpretation of religion alone. Get what is good, right, and proper, because you can read and you have a brain. Leave the politics and the humanism behind.
And I think
that is the problem.
I can buy from your point from there, because the first thing is that when, and I go back to your point, that some of these things that are in that letter are not the things that are promoted by the
they're expressly forbidden.
So let's now go back to the basis in the Bible, because then that is when you are going to have all the foundation of the faiths. So when you read what the Anglican Church is, the Church of England rather, is teaching us
back in the day,
yes,
and now
are different.
So which means they'll keep changing bases.
Yes, but has the Bible changed?
No.
When you look at what of course, when you talk at for Vatican, you have to have.
But even Islam,
also, because
the people who practice Islam say that Islam does not talk about this extremism of Boko Haram. Even those ones have their own interpretation.
Exactly.
So you pick out what is good. Leave Boko Haram alone. Read, reason, digest, and move on.
One of the issues, and that's why I think where King Leopold comes in, was that the fusion of state and religion.
And greed, personal greed.
Yes, because once you brought state and religion together, you expected that. And that started with the Roman Empire. Because, as Christianity started, the Roman Empire could not allow this influence, which was becoming a problem. And then the Roman Empire fused the state and religion together.
Disaster.
And from that fusion is where we're going to, a few days we're going to have Christmas, and a few days we saw Easter.
Now there is this humanism, intellectualism, that some people are pretending is religion.
Exactly. Now, but when you look at that in the letter again, when you were reading, when you were hearing the letter was saying, these are the practices, for example, when people go for confession. Now, King Leopold is reading and saying, you please make sure you make use of that time when they come for confession. Make sure you extract enough information from them so that, in other words, this confession is being used as a spy tool. That you go to the priest and tell him, Father, yesterday we were in a meeting and we talked about, say, okay, how many were you? Now, that one, much as it is something which is sacred in the Catholic religion, it is now being abused because of that fusion with the church. And the guy is saying, please make sure when they come to church, they pay taxes indirectly. And that, sometimes when I read these things, I just laugh and don't go rumba.
Okay. I think when you analyze Leopold's letter, you realize that we have lived it all. Just as he wrote it. Right now we are analyzing it, but actually we have lived it, including you, Mr. Mututu.
I agree.
We are still.
And
we are still living it.
We have lived it.
This is what we go through.
Yes.
It's the pain.
Yes. So number two, when you look at the lifestyles of the Congolese, there is one thing that this letter, I think, had not yet realized as another very important strategy of manipulating them. But I think they now later on, I think, amended, physically, not the letter, but they amended and implemented. And do you know what that tool is? Music in Congo. These people have used music to manipulate the Congolese. If you want a Congolese to even stay here for a whole day without eating, give him a guitar. Go and take his land back. Take all the resources. Give him his guitar tell him you can play music here up to evening. Even if you don't give him food, he will eat. I mean, he will be okay. So the other tool that they have used is that they understood that you have art. After realizing that you have art, how do they manipulate that art not to work in your interest but in their interest? So when they realize that you have a brain that is contrary to what they want, they either make life hard for you so that you are exiled to their own country, or you are killed. And this is what happened to Patrice Lumumba. They tried all those. Actually, Patrice Lumumba was fighting this very document, this very letter. He was unmasking them every day. And when they realized that they could not match his brains, they had to exterminate him. Now, these are the ones who allowed the compromise. They accepted to take the path of art. And it's not by mistake, Mr. Mututa, that I think here in this region, the biggest number of these of artists, you call it Lingala artists, that general, comes from DRC. And so during those times, they would ensure that every child, these whites try to understand them. Can they sing? If they can, they will start as early as possible to interest you to, even they give you free guitar. Start practicing every day. They even give, now they even have these donations through UNHCR. They give you food, so you don't even need to work. Then at that point, they take you out. That's why most of these, the Koffi Olomides of this world, they are not in Congo. Although they say I'm Congolese, but they are no citizens. You can start naming them. I will tell you where they stay. None of them is in Congo. You get? They're all out. Now you
including this, President who has just
you look at these people. You look at the biggest artists that Congo exports. The likes of Fally Ipupa, Koffi Olomide, Ferrigola, Papa Wemba, Warrison, Franco Luambo,
was
Gaz, Lokua Kanza, Sam Mangwana, Lukala, Fabricas Lemis from No, Abesi Masikini, Gims, Cindy Lissoa, Mbiria Bere. You remember Mbiria Bere?
Yeah.
Those were the years of Mr.
Yes.
Yeah, but even the lady, your friend who died recently,
Madilu system.
Madilu.
Yeah, but anyway, the list is going on long now.
I can read them. You know what? Panda Bongo Man.
No, but what we are saying,
all of them are not in Congo. All of them are now properties of the very people who manage their resources back home. They did this systematically to make them love music and give them guitars and so on, so that they can manage their resources back home. So that is another tool they have used. So here we could be enjoying the music, Lingala music as Africans, but actually there is a hidden agenda by the white man to put them there in that cocoon, box them there in the music, buy them free guitars and so on, connect them to the world of music, and then they lose track of their own resources.
Yeah, because from the same letter, the writer, King Leopold, is saying, and which we discussed earlier on here, the issue of AIDS, the issue of pharmaceuticals. He's saying you make sure, of course part of them is make sure that they read and they speak good English and wherever like we do, but they are not reasoning. But also, he says that about, when we're talking about the AIDS, that we cannot even have time to sit down and say, can we research, can we do our own discoveries? Because maybe the type of education that we were given will direct us to look for solutions for our problems from elsewhere.
Not maybe. That's what it is. The truth of the matter is that this particular data, I managed to point out a few things. One is what you have already talked about. And let me just say something about the confession. And this is mainly practiced in our Roman Catholic.
Actually,
that you confess
initially
before,
even the Protestants used to do so, but they
stopped that.
Yeah.
There are many things which I think the Anglicans also stopped, because you remember, you wouldn't take these musical instruments. Do you remember, for instance, in some of these churches like All Saints Nakasero?
Yeah.
When they stopped, they started allowing locally made instruments,
yes,
and the dances, our African dances. And I tend to agree with our senior brother, Brother Joshua Maponga Marara, the third, when he says that if this particular God, which the white man actually re-imported, re-exported to us, does not recognize our dance, our songs, our language, then this God, we must interrogate. Probably he is not our God. We must look for our own God. I do submit to us and to those who are viewing us that the confession, part of the confession, was actually a tool used by the Leopold, like Leopold pointed it out,
yeah,
by the colonialists at that time for spying purposes.
Sure, yeah.
At the same time, even now, by the way, by keeping us with this type of education, which is nothing but memory, memorize what has been put down for you and regurgitate it and put it back there. You cut out the element of reasoning, questioning and asking, discovering. I want to submit to us that it is true that we have got a section of people, scientists, who are homegrown, even those, by the way, who have gone out there. But they come with an independent mind and say, we are going to use this knowledge, but we shall make our own discoveries. And they have come up with scientific discoveries, but these discoveries have been stepped on, wrapped by the bigger picture. There is a policy, there is a machinery back home, even here, that you cannot imagine existing. So when Leopold talks about the confession, it is still happening.
Sure.
And it is for purposes of gathering intelligence information. Yet it is in the churches. When we talk about, point out the Belgian interests, what were the Belgian interests? Belgian interests, and we have noted it here, and I think Rich also captured it. Initially, and I told you in the initial stages, that it was actually the King Leopold II's personal empire. The interests were nothing but make sure that you get as much resources from DRC as humanly possible, such that we get to read, we do not raise the curiosity of the natives within Congo to question as to how much and why we are taking the resources that we are taking.
Exactly.
When he points out that they know God already, it is the truth.
Yes.
If Africa does not, if you tell me that Africa and we Africans came to know God with the coming in of the white man, then this God is not ours. Because if God started appearing to us when the white man came to us, moreover, after slave trade and then colonialism, then this God is a chaotic God, and we don't want to associate ourselves with this type of God. Finally, probably,
even if he doesn't want to associate himself with you,
teach them poverty. I do not want to appear. I don't want to appear eschatological, because I may not be maybe so much qualified into eschatological studies and the biblical and what have you.
but you're qualified in poverty.
the truth of the matter is, because that's what probably they have taught us. The truth of the matter is, sure, when you hear, when are you going to tell a peasant who is not that happy are the poor, and you leave it at that? That no, what we actually mean is not that you are supposed to be poor materially. We are talking about that you are supposed to be poor spiritually. You
humble,
yearning for the food coming from, spiritual food coming from God. That one is not emphasized that way. So the poor person, the peasant, the local person down here will probably glorify poverty, not knowing that actually the kind of poverty, probably the kind of poverty they are talking about is the poverty of the spiritual poverty, and constantly yearning for that. Then, when we talk about concentrating on the young ones, this letter is very instructive and relevant, like Comrade Urumba said,
Exactly.
because the concentration not only was it happening during the martyrdom, when the Rugaramas of that time, the Bazekketas of that time in Uganda, the Buzabaria of that time, were rebelling against their king. But it has consistently continued up to now, that we have got people, even in the Pentecostal movement, we have got young women and young men who are telling you, I'm Muganda of a Mamba clan. If a man comes and he's from the Mamba clan, I will marry. To hell with your tribal and customary rules and observances and norms. For me, my father is God.
Exactly.
My father is God. Because he's God, everybody is a father to everybody. Don't tell me about Simanyi Gabunga being the head of the Mamba. That one. We are running a very big risk.
Madness.
That if the God they brought to us does not recognize the cultural values, the norms that are embedded within our ways of life, I have got a problem with that particular God. If the God, before I appear before this particular God, I must be like the Speaker of Parliament of Kenya is saying, dressed in a necktie and a suit. I have issues with this particular God.
For that matter.
Finally, there is this element. Kill their heroes, glorify ours. Do you know that there is a movement now, especially in the Pentecostal movement? Some sections, because I know of the Pentecostal guys who are very nice and they teach very relevant gospel, they say, no, over praying here from Monday to Monday is not going to work. You have got to have time to work. They even develop projects, by the way. He's saying this is an economic project, go on it. But kill their heroes, glorify ours. We have a movement now in these movements which are moving around, Christian movements, whereby they say, leave the dead alone. If somebody has died, don't go to the grave, don't remember them, leave the dead to be. That is dangerous. We must remember the dead, especially those ones who aspire, such that we can continuously be inspired to achieve better. Finally, finally, there is this issue also. Don't bring them closer. This is from the letter. Don't bring them closer. They can give you chicken, they can give you also goats, but give them one cigarette. Don't sit with them on the table. Don't share meal with them. This is what the white man up to now does. And also remember, at the risk of appearing controversial, we have got so many Catholic bishops and faithfuls, but at the same time, constantly, the smoke that comes out of the Vatican has always been white, and therefore signifying that the next pope must also be white. How can't we have a black? When are we going to have a black
when your headquarters are in Rome.
That is, we may not shift the geography.
The church in Uganda here is called the Roman Catholic Church.
So, it is a very...
Roman Catholic Church.
Let him finish, and then Rachel will go.
It therefore becomes very controversial. It becomes very controversial as to how we are going to manage to keep this observance of this religion, when in actual sense everything about it is alienating us from them.
Rachel, you had something to say before we wind up.
I have not dwelt much on Leopold because the parallels are with us in this time and day.
Okay.
Not long ago, when the Archbishop of Canterbury and Pope Francis were in Sudan, you remember that time?
Yeah.
I said at the time that their appearing together in the same space and at the same time was very telling. Remember, it is then that the Archbishop of Canterbury began to shamelessly propagate the agenda to blur the boundaries of religion and humanism. Because for them, they have already gone to that level of they even have, I think it's the provost there at the main cathedral, who says he's into men.
They apologized for having mistreated the homosexuals.
Okay.
Yes.
For them, they've gone a step further. Now, the Catholic Church is working hard to keep up now with their Protestant fellows. But what we are saying is that Leopold did what they are doing now. The only thing is that he was more brutal. The difference is that now they are more sleek. They're more sly. But for you to come in the heart of Africa, and they were in Sudan, when they were talking about these things, in the middle of people for whom these values are unpalatable.
Never.
And the Bible you are moving around with forbids this expressly.
Do they read it?
I don't know.
Now,
but what we're saying is religion, much like the HIV vaccine and so on and so forth, must be seen in the truthfulness, not through the eyes of the Japanese, not through the eyes of the Chinaman, not through the eyes of the Europeans. You must interpret these things in the eyes of the African. Our values and biblical values are very much in agreement with refusing the latest interpretation of religion.
For example, I normally tell people a few things locally. When to tell you that Africa did not need religion from someone with a white or pink nose or wherever.
We had a better.
Yes, because
religion.
You remember even when Herod was chaotic.
Persecuting.
Yes, Jesus and the mother had to come down here.
And by the way, Egypt was not being described as Arab.
Exactly.
Egypt to Sudan, it was Sudan.
Yes.
It meant black.
Exactly.
So they had to bring
why did he not go to England, for example?
There were no human face. The humans were here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we can't finish this debate today because I know there's a lot that needs to be done, and we shall have more time to eat maybe next time. And of course, we shall invite people out there to give us their views on that. We are not experts on religion, neither are we experts on the history of religion. But what we are saying today are things that really concern us, the humans of Africa and people who live here on this African continent. And there's a lot that we can discuss until the chickens come back home. But again, I think next week we'll have time to go on the later, but also what the practices that are coming in today in the terms of religion and the African development. We cannot have our own medicines because someone said that is going to be satanic. We cannot have not our own music because then that was satanic. We cannot even have our own. You remember, if you saw what I saw, that during the time when the Queen was the burial of the Queen, they were coming with the ram.
That is a royal one.
that is which, if that is not
and the royal goats.
If that is not witchcraft.
How do we call that?
Royal dogs.
Thank you so much for being with us for this time. And I promise next week, again, we will be back with you on the same topic and we shall have more information. We will invite even people who have gone to school to study religion and religious studies to discuss more on this.
I want those ones.
What again needs to be done for Africa is Africa to find its own path in whichever way, in religion, in education, in research, so that we can live as people and respecting our cultures. Leave alone the Kaunda suits, we shall be putting them home until we get dry. Thank you so much for being with us and continue being with the UBC for this time. More programs are coming your way, and have a nice weekend. We thank you for your time.
The stage is a world of entertainment. Get the latest entertainment, lifestyle, events and activities. Chats with celebrities that make headlines.
It's your girl Zari, Mama Tifa. I'm in town, I'm in Uganda.
It's showbiz. Join me, Mary. I intend to connect you to a lot of fun. Cause I know you want it, you love it, you enjoy it. All on Power Flavor Magazine, reloaded for you right here on UBC. Don't miss out every Saturday.